Anybody can grab an account and start trading. And other businesses and other jobs, you have to get degrees and you have to go to school. So it's harder to jump in. So since everyone can jump into this, everyone has an opinion. There's lots of people who do it. But really, to make it in this job and to get the benefits of it is to really just grow through all of your buttons. It's going to press every button you have. If you're angry or you have scarcity and fear and whatever it is, comparing yourself to others, it's for sure going to come up in this job.
So welcome to Community. I'm sitting on with Brad Jelinek. Looking forward to catch up with you again. We spoke a while back. I believe it's been 2 years ago now. So good to have you back on. Let's talk about the trades as good traders and a few more things. So Brad, how's it going today? Welcome to the podcast again.
Hey, good to see you. It's 2 years. Wow. It doesn't seem like it's that long. We just talked about that, but it's good to be here.
Yeah, good to connect again for sure. So what I want to ask you first is kind of what's been going on in the past 2 years with your trading and with kind of the stuff you're doing? Anything new, anything different, or has it been the same?
Yeah, actually new and different. So let me think here. Got two little kids at home under 4. So the 2 years, I have to think how long ago 2 years was. So 2021, post pandemic. So we had the pandemic, the blowout, and then the rally back. And then we had kind of a euphoria in 2021 into the stimulus type stuff. And then we had the crash of everything in 2022 and now kind of the post recovery period. So I feel like if you've been trading since late 2019 into now, you've experienced 3 or 4 mini cycles kind of all in those years, which you didn't necessarily get in the 3 years before. So we've had a lot of action to adapt and learn and try different things and test your strategy and your risk management. So for me, when 2020 happened, I kind of went into my old index trader mode and took advantage of the volatility and really cut back on a lot of overnight holds and things that I didn't really want to sleep with. It just didn't feel good to go to bed with these massive moves that were happening. So when the fear goes up and the uncertainty goes up, I know people are going to want to move around and make a lot of adjustments during the day. So I try to keep my stuff during the day more. And when that kind of went away, it made more sense to do less of that and a little bit more occasionally swing trading and holding some stuff a little longer. But when I get into that, it's not necessarily my strength as opposed to the during the day stuff. So while I want to know what environment we're in, there's also what is Brad best at? And it not always the same. So there's kind of a few things going on. And I think fast forwarding to today, we have some of that happening again. So at the beginning of 2023 and in parts of 2022, it was a good environment for me because it was busy. It brought back a lot of the index trading stuff that I kind of learned to do when I started in 2003, which was taking out levels, big moves up and down during the day, and not a lot of this sustained bull market, low volatility type stuff that we've seen maybe the last, I don't know what it's been, like 37 days in the S&P without a move over 1%, I think I read. So when that stuff starts, that's when I have to, for me, it's a less advantageous environment during the day. And some of my positions that I have longer term do well, but the stuff that my bread and butter, kind of my income trading, if you want to call it that, doesn't really do as well in that environment. So one of the things that I learned about myself a long time ago was if you're trading the index futures and you like volatility, sometimes you'll even do better when it's chaotic. That what happens is a great hedge against that is actually owning index funds and assets. So if I own index funds and assets, when it panics, it doesn't always feel good right away. But if I'm buying them while it's panicking, eventually things recover and those assets do well. And then my trading has done generally pretty well during panics and during volatility. But then when the volatility gets sucked out, my trading may struggle, but my assets are doing well. So I've kind of had that arrangement working for me. And so the middle ground between that arrangement would be getting really good at trend following, swing trades, which I think a lot of people are doing. Earning strategies, holding things for a few days to a few months, bull market conditions really, which has been the last few weeks. And so that's another sweet spot. But for me, that's been something that I haven't really mastered like I have the other stuff. So I've tinkered with that. I've tried earning strategies. There's a lot of things that I will do in there, but that's really not my bread and butter as opposed to kind of what I just described before. So I've learned for me to kind of put some guardrails around my system, and this hedging with owning stuff at panic times has kind of been a good approach.
Interesting. It's kind of like a good way to combine investing and trading at the same time, where you have some where you kind of keep for longer, maybe for recovering when the market goes down, but then some where you actively manage more. So it's a good, definitely a good mix. I think people tend to see it too like one-sided. You can only do trading or only investing, but you can actually combine both, which is a good thing to understand.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, when things are going down and I'm picking up stuff for a longer term perspective, and sometimes I'm off by, I don't know, 5-7%. I try to really get stuff when it's panicking. And I've learned to just kind of buy index funds and high quality ETFs versus getting involved in a lot of stocks, because my only plan here really is to just own stuff when there's a lot of panic. And then know that if it stays really crappy for 2 or 3 years, I'm probably going to do well trading, and I can just kind of weather the storm. And then eventually we recover and I have stuff on the books. So of course, I'm working on the middle zone of also catching these swing trades when we do it like the last 3 or 4 weeks. But I found that it is really hard for one person to do all that stuff. It's very difficult to trade during the day and then to hold it overnight for 2 or 3 days. And then you have a stock position on, and then you have a longer term portfolio. And I've been trading for 20 some years, and I have tried and tried and tried, and it's been painful to do that. And I've kind of submitted to the fact that I'm pretty good at one area, and the other stuff, I have to just do what I described to you. And it doesn't mean I'm going to stop learning and taking trades occasionally in the other time zones, or maybe doing it smaller, but you just can't do it all in one person. It's very, very difficult to do.
Are you going to resell the indexes when they go high and they recover, or are you keeping them for long term?
Yeah, I thought about that today, and I thought, just don't touch this shit. Just leave it alone and have a really long time frame on it. But being a trader of my nature, if things get really juicy, frothy, sometimes I might sell calls against it, or I might actually get out and get back in. But I'm really trying to just keep building more assets, big picture, and then use the volatility to accumulate the income trading, and then fill up the bucket with the assets. And then there's other things you could do. You could do real estate investing and whatever else. You get 5% treasury money market rates right now, which isn't going to make anybody rich, but it's something. But it just is I'm trying to find the word for it. It's just an acceptance of, it's not that I'm not going to grow or learn or I've given up. It's just that trying to do all that stuff. The last 5 or 6 years, I think I've spent probably a good 18 months on a lot of other strategies geared towards catching earnings winners, swing trades, kind of like your typical 2 to 3 day swing trade, bullish type environment system. And I've had some success and I had good runs, but then I've not really caught on with that like I have my other stuff. And I think it's because my heart isn't in it either as much, because when I was younger and I really learned this index trading stuff with the futures, that stuff is seared in you, and you really have an edge with that, and you feel like you know where you're good. And when you try to pick up something new, you have to really have your heart in it, and you really want to work at that over and over, and get up and the excitement gets you out of bed in the morning. And I found myself dragging a little bit. So I've had to make adjustments and just kind of listen to that inner voice.
Some people like you and me, we have a strategy for when the market goes down, when things don't really work out the way we want. Like we kind of can go in other assets, can invest. But some people don't really know that maybe they're new and they're not sure about what they mean. So what do you do when you don't know what to do in the market? Like, are there things you should kind of reflect on or practice, or how can you get out of that?
That's kind of the question I have for life right now in some ways, because I watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's really good. And he's talked about I'm going to get to your question in a roundabout way. He started with coming over here from Austria as an immigrant and won all these bodybuilding championships and had a real directed focus to do that. And then after that, he got into being an actor and struggled through that, took classes, and eventually was the highest grossing actor. And then he got into politics. As a Republican, he ended up winning a Democratic state in California. So three amazing lives with one person. And he always had that. Well, the way he tells it, I like to know the inner details, but the way he tells it, he had that directed focus on each thing. And when you had that directed focus, it was easy to kind of narrow in. But then your question is, well, what do you do if you don't have that directed focus? And that's the book I would like to read, because I think a lot of us, if they're in our trading and sometimes in our lives, or as we age and we have different things to accomplish and new things to try, we don't have that focus and what to do. And I think for trading, I think it's experiment with things with small size, sometimes it's making an effort to network, to get out of your house, to meet with people, to talk about different strategies, different things. And like for me, I joined a small cap stock trading group, and I tried this was a couple of years ago. I spent a good 18 months with earning strategies and small caps, and I learned a lot about it. And I ultimately learned that it probably wasn't for me, but I kind of know what I don't know now. So that was a push I made. And then another push I made was, which I'm doing right now actually, is I'm working with a friend who I grew up trading futures with. And we use some programming stuff that we learned from GPT to develop a system. And basically the system is just a way to tell us whether to buy or sell with a very slight positive edge, but the drawdown is pretty large. So you wouldn't do the system outright. But what we're doing with it is using our discretionary skills to decide if we want to take the trade or not and see how much better we can make it. And is that something we can scale? So in a sense, it's almost like a way to scale, a backdoor way to scale. And that's another new product I'm trying. So I don't know if these things are going to stick, but as I check them off, it's just another thing that I kind of know that I've tried and I can rule it out. And it strengthens my core trading, because sometimes when I've lost the most money, it's when I'm confused about what I want to do, or I want to make another jump. So I'll try a lot of other things and sometimes get lost and maybe trade a little too big doing something else. And it eventually brings me back to my core thing that I've done. And then I have more excitement and more of a focus, but sometimes I need to kind of go off to go back in. So that's one thing that I'm working on right now. I think another thing is just releasing sometimes and doing less of it. And when you get so close to something, I mean, I think we've all heard stories about people who really wanted something in their life and they focus on it so much. And then when they forget about it and sort of give up, it comes. And I think with the trading is very similar, where you have a clear focus on what you want, but sometimes when the market's not where you are, or you're having trouble getting out of bed, or you're beat up, or you feel like this is tough. I mean, it's emotionally hard. This is a very emotionally hard job. Sometimes you have to let go. You might need to take walks in the middle of the day. You might need to reach out to other traders. You might need to just take some time off. And I've found that my best runs consistently over my career have happened almost out of the pits of despair, out of the periods of disinterest and openness, and a period of despair maybe before that, and then kind of moving into this kind of empty spot where I don't really care what happens, and then something happens. So it's getting yourself to that mindset, I think, is really important.
The thing with trading is that people expect they can do it like all by themselves on their own at home and like be by themselves. And partly, yeah, like you definitely can, but there's a lot of power into kind of meeting people, kind of having connections, talking to the traders. I think that stuff makes a big difference. And people won't realize until it's maybe too late, like they have no support group. But if you do this like practically before that, then you have more chance of at least having good support around you, people who can care about your success.
Yeah, and I think trading, I don't know, we talk about trading, and everyone has a personal how to buy, how to sell. And I think that learning from others who are like you, who have your temperament, who have your lifestyle, can be very useful, because you can start to actually talk X's and O's of how you do things. But others, you might learn from them psychologically, or their attitude, or how they carry themselves, but your strategy might be very different. But I feel like either way, it's important to kind of you want some peers that are maybe your age, your trading zone. You want some people who are older than you, who are more successful than you, and you want some people who are younger that you're kind of helping out. And it could be different levels of helping. It could be buy and sell, how to do it. It could be, what does life feel like when you have kids? I just have one, you have four, you have more money. What do you do with your money? It could be a younger person who's managing their emotions and their temperament. So I try to have all that going on. And sometimes it takes work to reach out and to connect with people. And I think a good thing for that is just when you feel like doing it, you do it. And when you don't feel like doing it because you're into your own trading, you don't do it. And you'll know kind of when it's time for you to go on one of those periods where you're reaching out to people. And like for me, I haven't done a podcast for a long time, and I've just been kind of inward, and just and I'm coming out of that a little bit now. So I feel like I'm ready to talk more and to discuss and reflect. And for a while, that's not where I was at. I was working on stuff. And I think you have to obey that.
Speaking of which, tell me a bit more about how it is to trade with kids. I know it's probably tougher to manage a schedule that way. Obviously, I don't have kids yet, so I'm not there yet. But maybe for the audience who has kids, or people who are on the point of having kids in the future, what's the things you got to plan or think about when they trade? They want to make it work. They got to spend like a lot of efforts on trading, but they don't know exactly how to do it with the family around them.
Well, I mean, I never would tell anybody you can or can't do something, because anything's possible at any level if you have the will to do it. But I had the strong will to do it when I was in my early 20s. So it was much easier because I had no responsibilities. I think some folks have had other jobs and made money, and they have financial freedom to go a few years without making trading profits. And that could be another situation where you're set up pretty well. But when you're only trading and you have a family and you need it for money, it's very difficult, because you're now trading. A mentor I had said, it's hard enough to trade the market, but you don't want to trade the P&L and the market and like in your own market. So you end up having 2 or 3 markets you're trading. There's like a self-esteem or confidence market. There's, I need to make money. And then there's, what's the actual product doing that I'm trading? And that's really tough. So if you can get yourself in a position to only trade one of those things, it's a lot easier. And it never gets easy when you're not making money or you're struggling. But I think with kids, there's a good thing too. You have more focus and broadness in your life. So it's a lot of stresses and challenges, but there's also like a deeper fulfillment, kind of like a big hug that you get of love and care that you didn't have before, which I think is a good thing. And it grounds you and it helps you get through things easier, but it also creates stress on the other side, because you want to make money. And sometimes you miss trades and you miss days and you're not completely focused because of kids crying, or they're in the house. Like my kids are in the house with me a lot. So sometimes it's distracting and I'll miss things and I'll get frustrated because I'm not focused. And that's hard. Sometimes it's easier though, because it's not the only game in town. My trading is now a piece of my life, not all of my life. And it used to be most of my life or all of my life. So there's pros and cons to it, like everything. I think having a little bit of money so you don't have to make it. I mean, I always say to people, I mean, some people say 3 to 6 months, but honestly, realistically, 3 years. I mean, 18 months to 5 years. I know 5 years is a long time, but that's probably too long. But 18 months to 3 years of not having to make money and freaking out about making money is a really good place to be, where you can set yourself up for success. If it's 3 months, it's very difficult. I was talking the other day with a friend. Can you imagine if we had to do this with kids without any money behind us and the expectation to do it in a month? Because I'll be honest with you, sometimes I've had a pretty consistent record over the years, but sometimes I don't make money for 6, 8 months. I've had it before, 6, 8 months, nothing. And then a really good month or two that makes up for it. And then like I've had the last 3 months, I haven't really gotten much done at all. And I've lost money. And then at the beginning of the year, I did pretty well. And I just have been slowly giving a lot of that back. And I have a little bit of it left now. Maybe I give half it back, I think. So, and it's starting to pick up a little bit lately again. So, I mean, it could go a year, it just could. And that's the time that you always say you get stronger later when it happens. But when it's happening, it doesn't feel good.
Now, this is where having multiple streams of income definitely helps, and being able to not just save on the trading income necessarily, but what are some ways you kind of prevent that, like having these losing weeks or months? How do you prevent this from affecting your finances overall?
Well, when I first started trading, this was, so I'm 42. I started when I was tinkering in my teen years, but I really started at a firm professionally when I was, I think 21 or 22. And we used to get paid once a year. So it was really difficult that way. They would give us what's called a draw. It was like a couple $1,000 a month, and we had to pay that back. So you make profits, they'd pay it to you, then you pay it back out of your profits. Then you get a check at the end of the year. And eventually they paid us quarterly. So it got a little better. But as you started to succeed, you start stockpiling money away, and then you would just get used to living that way. And now that I'm on my own, it's kind of all one flow where the money is just in different accounts, and it doesn't really work that way anymore. So I've made enough money to live on fine, and I don't have to worry about it. So it's more about, it's just continuing to make money and make investments. And it's not about, oh crap, I'm going to run out of money in 6 months. Where when I first started, that was more of a concern. It was, I need to do this right now. I need to pay my rent. These are important things. But as you go along, you learn to manage that, and it becomes easier. I would like to tell you it becomes easier psychologically, but it kind of doesn't. Financially, you lose that crutch where you're worried about making money. But I mean, you get expectations. You want to have a level of success. You expect a level of professionalism, and sometimes you let yourself down, and you just do. And you have to learn. I think learning to be gentle with yourself and to be to understand that cycles come and go, and times are tough sometimes, and you don't have to batter yourself into the ground, which was a big problem for me for many years. Even when I had a lot of success, it was being very hard on myself and expecting me to always be at the certain level of proficiency. And when I wasn't, it was, when I was at the firm in Chicago, I would compare myself to other people. How come I didn't see the move and this and that? And that's just a destructive. I've learned to iron a lot of that out with age and a lot of self work. But I mean, this is a never ending challenge when it comes to that stuff.
That's a good point. Yeah, for sure. It's something that is definitely tough to work in. When you have a tough time, you feel bad because you have a tough time. When you have a good time, you feel good. You want to have that good time more, and then it's just a cycle repeats itself. It's definitely a good way to put it. In terms of money, do you have any other kind of income stream that you rely on, or is it based only on savings when you have a tough month or tough couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, I actually like talking about this because no one talks about this. In my sphere, people who have been trading longer, there's very little discussion on what do you do with your money? People who have enough money, you just don't hear about it because you assume everyone either has no money or they need to have the next trade work out to live. But I think right now is a good environment if you have some money because you get 5% with doing nothing. So that's something. So if you don't know what to do, you can do that. So I have some passive income coming in from 5% treasuries. I have stock portfolios of index funds. I'm a stock manager I use who runs a portfolio for some tech type names, 8 or 10 stocks that are in and out of, and there's some options that are written on those occasionally. And that stuff just kind of keeps me, when I have someone else working on it, it keeps me out of it. And other people ask me, well, how can you have someone else work on any of your money when you've been trading your whole life? Isn't that just stupid for you to do? But again, I can't do everything myself because these people are looking at a time frame that might be 6 months to 3 years, some of them 5 years or more. And I've been trained to watch for stuff during the day. So as much as I've lengthened my time frame a little bit, you can't. It's like you're the general of the army. You're fighting on the front lines, and then you're also trying to recruit and station people in their own little subgroups in the middle. So there's 3 jobs there. And I found that I can do the big job and the little job, but the middle job gets hard. At first, I thought it was better to do the middle and the small one, which would be swing trade and day trading. I found that to be, I still do a little bit of that, but I found that to be tough. But like overall wealth management and mixed with trading, I can do that together. But I had to get a lot of it out of my hands. So index funds, treasuries, I have, what else do I have? I have some passive investments, some private investments that I don't know if they're going to work out or not, that might take 10 years. Some biotech fund I have and some startup stuff. I live in the Seattle area, so Pacific Northwest venture thing I have going on. And some things like that we'll see how they play out. But ultimately, it's treasuries, trading income, and money that I've saved. I've made enough money trading, luckily, where I can just tap into that if I have a problem. So I don't need to rely on the regular thing as much as I used to. At some point, yeah, you got to make money, but the pressure of having it happen right now is not there, which is good. That's good. But I've had a lot of stress. And I know this is not relative or not applicable to a lot of people who are listening, but maybe it is to some. I've had a lot of stress in my life the last 2 or 3 years, figuring out how to handle money that I've made trading in terms of what do I do with it? Because you start to put on positions and try to trade them yourself. And then you're trying to time that market. And then I would find that when I had a bad day trading, I would go over and sell a bunch of my stocks, and it'd be the worst time to do it. And I couldn't emotionally, I would get my wires twisted, and it just wasn't. So I learned how to do a better job of that the last, I would say, couple of years. So the thing I described to you in the beginning about buying assets when there's a panic and then trading is kind of my approach for now until it evolves.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because that's something I struggle with also a lot in the past. Like, I want to do everything myself. I want to be able to invest my money, swing trade, day trade at the same time, like all together. And then I realized there's nothing wrong with like just buying an ETF and keeping it for the long term. You don't have to like catch all the swings, go in and out all the time. There's nothing wrong with like investing some money that's managed by someone else. Sometimes it works better that way too, where you have some buffer on the side, and you can focus on like what you're best at. So I'm really glad you mentioned this because I thought for a long time I had to do all myself, kind of find ways to trade stocks, find ways to invest in stocks, and kind of get in and out all the time. So it's good that you mentioned this. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And one more thing about it is I can't even overstate the amount of relief I had when I came to hopefully you get the relief from hearing me admit to this, but it caused me so much stress because I thought man, I need to double this money every 5 years. I need to be smart with it. I need to get to the next level by learning how to hold things for 6 months or 12 months. But I thought, well, that's not how I made the money. And now I think I can be an expert at that, which is really a whole nother lifetime. And it's not that you can't be better at it, but I realized that being less stupid with it is better than trying to be really good at it. And I didn't really have the heart to go on and spend the time and energy doing that. But I tricked myself into thinking just because I had the money to do it, because I was good at one business, that I could just be good at the other one. I could be William O'Neill or whoever, some great 12 to 18 month trend trader. And occasionally I'll find something, sure, but that's not what I did to get here. And it was arrogant of me to think that I could just do that. And better yet, though, was what if I could buy things? What if I could naturally have more of a patience muscle, because I can make money when the market falls apart or when it's busy because I can trade. So that keeps me busy. And then when it gets really ugly or panicky, I can kind of see the sentiment and the signs. I just start buying stuff that I like, buying index funds. That's a pretty cool system. And that's something that I can actually do. And even though it's buy and hold, and things don't go up forever necessarily. I mean, they kind of do, but in other countries they haven't, but in the US they have. But when that stuff comes back, if I keep buying during panics, I eventually do very well. I mean, it ends up being where you can at least get 7% a year over and double every 10 years. And that's not exciting to some people, but if you're able to make money in other periods and you have money that's stacking up on the side, the math works out very well. So while I hope in my life I have more ventures and I maybe get involved in more businesses and other things happen, for right now, this is kind of the lesser of some of the other evils that I was doing and some of the stress I was creating, and kind of what you were saying.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. I like it. Tell me a bit more about a routine. I know you're a big fan of routines and having things in your day that kind of helps you to be more energized, to kind of trade better, of course. So what are some things you do that kind of helps you get back on track or stay on track?
Yeah, I like that question. My wife and I recently watched the Miracle Morning documentary, and I had read the book a long time ago. And I thought, well, why does this work so well? And there's just something about getting up early, walking in the morning, thinking about doing a little, I've heard it called segment intending, which means every time a new segment starts in your day, this podcast would be a segment. And then when we get done, there's another segment. You kind of spend just a few seconds, 20 seconds, thinking about what do you want out of the next segment. So I've really tried to think about, what do I want out of this conversation today? What do I want out of my workout? What do I want out of my drive to town? So that's been very helpful to think in terms of that. So I don't always get up at 5:30 every day and do I like to get up early, walk, and then I do a little bit of what I said and maybe a brief bit of journaling and then like a 20 to 30 minute meditation. Some days it doesn't happen that way, but generally speaking, that's kind of the routine I've been on. And I've been also taking a break now when the market's a little slower, mid-morning every day for about an hour, and just going on a walk. And that's been really nice to break up my day. And I find that I get more, even if I miss a move, I end up coming out way ahead by being refreshed and sometimes seeing things a different way, or just not losing money in something that just banging my head against the wall. And then at nighttime, it depends. Sometimes it's walking audiobooks. Other times I'm really into reading. I just read this novel called Musashi, which is really good. It was a Japanese novel. So I did that it was 1,000 pages. So I was on that every night. And once that stopped, I was on the documentaries for a little bit. And then now lately I've been meditating at night and just kind of hanging out and journaling and maybe watching a little bit of YouTube interviews with people. So it kind of changes depending on what I'm in the mood. Sometimes I'll watch shows for 2 weeks and just waste my night watching shows. And then sometimes I'll just be learning and reading. And then so my point being that I let myself have that freedom to move around a little bit in my routine, but that's kind of where I'm at for now.
I realize a lot of traders kind of, especially people I talk to who are not necessarily profitable, they kind of go to trading the first thing in the morning, they start trading, they start like doing this stuff. They want to make money. And sometimes having a routine before that could help to kind of be in the right frame of mind to trade, or be in the right perspective, the right performance kind of habits on it. What are some things people can do before they start trading to kind of be in the right mindset for trading?
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I think if you can go on a walk, it really helps. I'm on the Pacific US time zone, which is tough because it's a 6:30 a.m. market open. So sometimes it's hard for me to do that. I want to stay up. My kids go to bed. I only have like an hour of free time, and then I got to go to bed to do that. So oftentimes I have to move my day around. But if you can walk in the morning before the market opens, I think it helps a lot. It really just it resets you can see, you see nature or you see other people, and it just puts you in a different mindset. You can kind of think, you can consciously think about your day. Whereas when you get up right before the bell and you go in there and start trading, you're kind of, in some ways, you're unconsciously creating your day because you're under the gun right away to just look at the market, in which case it's kind of imposing itself on you. But if I can walk first and separate myself a little bit, and you could meditate or journal or whatever you want to do, but I like to walk. If you can do that, you kind of are in this conscious mindset. And then when you come into the market, you're deciding what you want to do versus having it kind of decide for you sometimes. I've noticed that can be a little bit of a differentiator for me. And also, there's times when your style is in vogue or it works well. Like for me, when it's volatile overnight and we're having a lot of fear in the world or just uncertainty, I know that it's going to be good for me. So I get in there earlier and I'm ready to trade pretty much all day. But when it's not like that, like right now, when it's been going up every day and it's a little slower, I just take more time off. I come in the morning, I disappear for 2 hours. I check on my phone. It's slow. I don't come back for that day. And I just give myself the room to do that. And I do better that way. It's okay to do that because it's not every single day is the same. And that's something that, being raised to work really hard and get up early, I've had to unwind some of that, because while it's nice to work hard, I would rather be smart and be opportunistic than just to grind and work hard. And I think some of us have to learn that lesson the hard way. I did.
I definitely like that. Yeah, that's definitely a big one. And also setting a goal for the day sometimes can make a big difference. Like people tend to repeat the same mistakes and they don't really go back on the performance. So they have no way to like know what they got to work on, but then they don't have any goals for the week on like what to improve. It could be like a small thing they want to improve that week, but that makes also a big difference.
That's a really good point, and I could actually do better at this. I used to record all my trades by hand every day. At the end of the day, blue and red ink religiously for years. And I started to get sloppy and I haven't done that as much. But one thing that does is it gives you an awareness of, you just see like, I'm in the middle of the range. What am I doing? This is not good. I want to be proud of where I plot my trades tomorrow. And that's sometimes I would say to myself, be proud of this when you look at it at the end of the day. And that would help me hold off on a kind of a crappy spot. But if you don't know, if you don't have that awareness, then you don't really know. It's like you're just unconsciously doing the same stuff over and over again. So I think building in some sort of a review process like that. And I think on a bigger review, like maybe on a quarter, what you said is really smart, where you say, I want to work on this one thing or these two things, not 5 things, but 1, maybe 2, and just really grill down on that. And I think that can be powerful.
For sure, for sure. Anything we didn't talk about and you want to mention to the audience that they should try to learn or do better at?
I think people who stick around doing this are in it for the personal growth. It's a spiritual, people who don't trade, this can sound stupid, but anybody can grab an account and start trading. And other businesses and other jobs, you have to get degrees and you have to go to school. So it's harder to jump in. So since everyone can jump into this, everyone has an opinion, there's lots of people who do it, but really to make it in this job and to get the benefits of it is to really just grow through all of your buttons. It's going to press every button you have. If you're angry or you have scarcity and fear and whatever it is, comparing yourself to others, it's for sure going to come up in this job. And not that it won't come up in other jobs, but part of the reason I think those of us who chose this, we chose it because we know that it's going to further us in breaking free personally on a lot of that stuff. So for me, it's always working on embracing that part of the job. And when that pain comes and that suffering comes, it's just another thing that I needed to learn and it needed to come. So I'm never trying to look at it as, why does this happen to me? This sucks. This isn't fair. One of the big themes for me was always injustice or unfairness or things that, if you work hard and you study it, then you should get it. And sometimes in trading, you just don't. And then sometimes you get it when you didn't work hard and you didn't study it. And it just goes back and forth. And I had to learn to unwind a lot of that fairness aspect of things, because that's not how it works. And I think embracing that process and just knowing that this job is going to really do that for you. And if you stick with it, you have to do that or else you won't make it. And I appreciate that about this more. That's probably the biggest thing I appreciate about the job. So I would tell others to not shy away from that stuff.
That's a good reminder too. Something that I used to think about before a lot and don't think about it too much. Like it's easy to get stuck in the day-to-day and the trades and the journal stuff, but you forget that to be able to pay out is really the improvements you have in yourself. And the fact that you kind of grow your skills and grow your personal trades, which is a good thing.
Yeah. I think so, because in the end, like, what are we even doing here if we're not doing that, right? I mean, we have a life, and this isn't us. This is just a thing that we do to make money, but it's also a game. It can be enjoyable, but it serves a deeper purpose than that, I think. And if we can get that out of it, I think it really, it feels more fulfilling. It doesn't feel like you just guessed flashing numbers all day for money. There's more to it than that.
So what can people connect with you or find out more about your work outside this podcast?
Yeah, I have a podcast I've been doing for quite a while now. I don't even know how old it is, 5 or 6 years. It's tradinglifepodcast.com, and it's called the Trading Life Podcast by Brad Jelinek. And you can any podcast platform, it's on there. And it's a short form podcast where, similar to this, I will talk about all kinds of stuff, market events, life, things I'm bumping up against, increasing my size, decreasing my size, trying new trades, new markets, pretty much anything. So I'm pretty open about sharing with it, because I don't feel like there's a whole lot of secrets in this. And I like to share that with people. And I've met a lot of friends by sharing it. So I'm sure you have too, which has been nice.
Yeah, the cool thing about your podcast is that it's very real. It's very based on like what you face and the real challenges. Like, the stuff you see on other podcasts or like on other places where it's like all hype and all like excitements and stuff. It's really based on your personal experience and things you face, and I think people can benefit from that. It's a good way to learn.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I try not to come on if I don't have something that I feel inspired about, and I try not to bullshit people about things that just aren't true, because why? I mean, it's not. There's just no. Sometimes the hardest thing as a trader is having early success too, because early success means you trade larger and you get hurt more later. And I mean, I don't know why that just came to mind, but it came to mind because I know some people who have had some early success, and it fills your head with, it's not that it's not good to have success, but you can get your head filled with how things are, and you might just be seeing one part of a larger cycle. So I think back to our beginning point, if you've been around the last 3 or 4 years, you've kind of gotten a nice taste of what markets can do a little bit, the different cycles.
I appreciate your advice here, Brad. I think it's been a lot we covered here, so people can check out your work for sure. Can check out your podcast, and hopefully they can connect with you, learn more from you that way. I think that'd be awesome.